Attorney Chris Perrette.
All right, shout out to Nick Underhill over at NewOrleans.Football. We tell you every week if you're looking for Saints coverage and you're not a member at NewOrleans.Football, well, then you really don't care about Saints coverage because it's really the only spot. Get over to NewOrleans.Football and subscribe today. Become a member, and you can also check out the podcast. It's my favorite listening, as you can get it wherever you check your podcast out. Nick, good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing
well,
good.
man.
Drew Brees, he zipped the mouth of a lot of critics on Sunday night. What'd you make of the quarterback's play?
Yeah, I thought he played really, really good. And I know it's easy to dismiss the performance, saying, it's the Lions and there's some issues with their defense and everything. But, I think with a lot of the stuff that was going on and the stuff that we needed to see, I think it was more internal. And I don't think it matters if you're playing the Lions or the 85 Bears. Accuracy is accuracy. Throwing passes down the field is throwing passes down the field, and Brees did those things. And, I think if we're looking at the narrative of him falling off a cliff or age being at a point where he's never dialing it back and looking good again, I think you're right that he did zip some mouths, and this was the performance that he needed to have. And I just think some things set up in this game, too, that allowed him to do that. Emmanuel Sanders played a lot better. I think he was detailed in his routes and the way he played, and I think that showed up with the chemistry there. And just like a lot of those little things, I think got a lot better. And then the other thing is that Detroit played a lot of cover one, and you were able to see them throw down the field a little bit more because they were able to isolate those routes. And with the way Drew's playing since 2017, that's what he needs to be able to make those throws. He's not going to try to, zip a ball in between his own coverage, but if you allow him to get one-on-one and his guy gets a step, that becomes a little bit more of a, lofted accuracy throw, and you see him do those things. So I think this was the performance they needed as an offense to kind of have a little bit of a springboard going forward. And, at least for a little while, I don't think that we'll have to, have these discussions about Drew, being too old to be effective.
No, I mean, look, I think he has a better arm than Josh Allen. He had more completions that traveled over 15 yards in the air. So, the proofs, numbers never lie. That's what they say, Nick. What was going through your head when the Lions, you kind of blink and it's 14-0. And then you're thinking about all the missing players, the 1 a.m. testing, just all the adversity. What's going through your head when it's 14-0?
And I was sitting out there and I was thinking, wow, I just spent all this money to come here for this. It just kind of felt like, here we go again. This is unbelievable. I can't believe that the team's in this situation. What's going on with the defense? Sean's been basically sending verbal subtweets at Dennis Allen all week, and they're playing like this. It looked really bad. But, as soon as they had that drive going the other way, I texted someone. I was like, they're going to win this game by 14. I mean, obviously they didn't, but you just saw with the offense that, they were dialed in. It looked easy. They looked like the Saints, and, they just had that rough start. But, man, I can't believe they won that game considering all they went through. 6 guys out. You're up until, 3, 4, 5 in the morning doing these COVID tests, which, the league's got to figure that out. That can't happen. You can't have someone the night before a game wondering if he has this. And if they can do these point-of-care tests, why aren't they doing them before someone gets on a flight? I understand that there's a lapse and there's only so much you can do. And, we get the same tests as the players. We go and we get tested before noon each day. They fly them to Houston. And then you get an email around 11 to 12 o'clock at night telling you, hey, you passed or you failed. So they're going through the same thing. There's that delay. But if you can do this point of care, and granted, they aren't as accurate, but if everybody's going to be trapped inside a metal tube, breathing recycled air, it seems like you should be spending the money to take that extra step, at least that one day per week, to make sure that something like this, to the best of your ability, is prevented. This just can't happen. There's too much money at play. These guys are too valuable to the league. They need to make sure that they're safe getting on these flights.
Nick Underhill, the exclusive voice of the New Orleans Saints, right here on Off the Bench. Check out his content at NewOrleans.Football. Remember, weekly, it's brought to you by former LSU Tiger and current attorney Chris Perrette. Peyton was talking a little bit about it yesterday, but Kamara's leading the league in touchdowns right now with 7. He looks like an all-pro. He looks like one of the best players in the league. How do you manage his snaps to make sure that he is as effective down the line? And what do you make of Latavius Murray and his role right now through 4 weeks?
I think that they should try to get that split a little bit, maybe a little bit more advantageous to Alvin. But basically, I look at 2017, how you used Ingram and Alvin. And granted, Murray isn't as effective in the passing game as Mark Ingram is. He was a really good screen runner, and really in 2017, he averaged more yards per screen than Alvin did. But I would bang Murray between the tackles like they did in this game. Those inside zone runs for him this week were really, really good. And if you're looking at the offensive line, Cesar Ruiz and Nick Easton really shined on those plays. And I thought that was one of the big reasons for improvement this week. And granted, Andrews Pete wasn't out there, but I don't know if you really noticed it in this game, but yeah, I don't think you want to overuse Alvin. I think you need to be careful to manage his snaps and to make sure that he's this guy he is right now, and that you avoid that injury. So I would never try to push him towards 300 carries or anything like that, but I would try to get a little bit more of that split, and you gotta dial back with Alvin. And if you're going to use him more than you have in the past, try to get those plays in space and try to limit those hits. And your football purists are going to look at that one play he had early in the game. He was on the sideline and he stepped out of bounds instead of taking a hit. That's the stuff I want to see him doing, because he's too important to this team, and 2 yards is not worth an injury. Avoid those hits, limit the contact, and take hits when it makes sense, and just be smart about how you're using him. He's way too important to what they're doing. And I said before the season, if he stayed healthy, they could win a Super Bowl. And I still think, despite the start, that once they get everybody back, if he does stay healthy until the end of the year, I still think they have a really, really good chance.
Yeah, there's going to be a massive one coming up in Tampa Bay in a few weeks when you look at how kind of both those schedules are lining up. So I read your film breakdown in NewOrleans.Football, and the kind of insight that you get is incredible. Like, for instance, that wheel route that they hit to Alvin Kamara is only the third time in his career he's run a wheel route from the slot out of the trips formation. Like, that's the type of coverage you get with Nick. And so you talked about, like, kind of the touches being split between Murray and Kamara. How about what I love, Nick, and I don't know how, I guess what I'm saying is, how common is this? I loved when they were on the goal line and they have both those guys in the game at the same time, and you got kind of Kamara threatening the flanks, whereas Murray's that kind of gut punch to the middle. Like, it puts the defense in a very odd spot.
Yeah, I think they should do more of that stuff, honestly. It doesn't show up quite enough. And, there's a few things that they're not doing yet that I'm a little bit surprised by. I continue to be surprised by the usage of Taysom Hill. I thought that he'd be more involved in the passing game.
Yep.
I don't know about these, the direct snaps and that. They haven't been too effective yet. And, frankly, the fumbles are quite concerning with him, and he needs to dial that in. Like, you can't take out your starting quarterback that has a change of pace guy fumble the ball. Like, that just can't happen.
Yeah.
But, I do think those plays are very effective with him. They just need to find more ways to get him more involved in the passing game. And I thought they tried a little bit this week, but, I really believe that Minnesota game was going to be the blueprint. But they do have all these unique guys and different ways to use them. And I just don't know that we've seen the creativity dialed up to, quite, a 10 yet. And there is a lot of stuff they can do to keep stressing guys out. They did have the Lions off balance a little bit more in this game than I felt they did in other games. They were up to 14 personnel groupings in this one. They were 13 in week one. And, last week and the week before, it was below 10 in both games. So, I don't know if not having Mike Thomas dialed things back a little bit and they were a little bit more conservative, but there's a lot of stuff that they can still do. And I don't think that they've quite hit their stride yet offensively.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a fool me twice situation with the direct snaps. Like, Taysom can be involved elsewhere, but that needs to, I think, get shut down for now. Okay, so last one here, Nick. What is the status of Mike Thomas? Let me just go down the list. Lattimore, Davenport. Like, what is the status of everybody as far as you know on Tuesday?
I think Mike Thomas is going to do everything within his power to play this week. He practiced most of last week. I think by Friday it became pretty evident that he wasn't going to play. But, I think that if Mike's able to walk, he'll walk and hobble himself out there and play the game. He's just, he's the type of guy that's going to do everything possible, and you aren't going to stop him. So I would say he's very close. I'm guessing here, but if I had to, go place my wager somewhere, I would bet yes. But, not too aggressively, but a conservative yes bet. Lattimore last week, I was told his hamstring injury wasn't major. So, I think it's probably a week-to-week thing. Davenport, right after he got hurt, the talk was that he wasn't immediately rolled out. They were going to see how he responded, that it was just a tweak of the toe. So I don't know. I don't know with him. It's like you see him on the field or you don't. Like it's just at this point, it just feels like there's something always going on. And that's not a knock on him. It's just, that's just basically where it's at right now. So we'll see with him, but they need him. Look, I mean, Cam Jordan's been doubled on, well, heading into this game, it was 34% of his snaps, I think. This week it was around 40%. Last year it was 25%. They need somebody else on that other side of the line to take a little bit of attention away so he's not running into, a tackle and a running back or a tackle and a tight end or a tackle and a guard virtually at every other snap. And that's a huge issue for the team. Like, I think if we're going through the list of things, I think at some point you assume that Lattimore and Jenkins' talent's going to shine through and they're going to stop making these mistakes. But where's the pass rush coming from? I mean, it can't just be Trey Hendrickson sneaking through 3 times a game because everybody's looking at the other side of the line. Like, they need him out there. And I think he's far more important to their success, Davenport, than I think anybody really thought.
Well,
NewOrleans.Football. Subscribe today to get your Saints information. Nick Underhill is the best at it. And make sure and subscribe to that podcast as well. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can check out NewOrleans.Football podcast. Thank you, Nicky. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Always. That Conversation Weekly is brought to you by former LSU Tiger and current attorney Chris Perrette. We'll be back and close at hour 2.
Off the bench with Kalana and T-Bob.